Life is made up of moments, some great ones, some terrible ones. Moments make up the man or woman. What do you do to prepare for that? What do you do when it has arrived? What do you do when it has passed? You don't make the moments make you. This is the Muamba Moments.
Thank you once again for everybody joining me on this new episode of the Muamba Moments. And today we have a very special person, my very first NFL coach. And at the time we met when we were in Indianapolis with the Indianapolis Colts. Yep. It's Mr. Coach Chuck Pagano. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on here with us again today, Coach.
So thank you for having me.
So this is where I want to start with you, right? I know you're busy. I know you got a lot of stuff. You got a plan for an upcoming season and everything. So I won't take too much of your time, but I want to chat about a few things. And as I mentioned to you before, you know, the Muamba Moments, we talk about those moments that molded you into the person that you are, and, you know, how you've reached the level that you're at today. And you're at the top of your profession. So I really want to just extract some of those lessons that you've learned along the way. But I want to start right here, your family life. And I remember very specifically, almost every meeting room, Coach, you always talked about your family. And that's one thing you always talked about: family, football, faith, family, football, right? Yeah. And you always brought up your family. And I don't know if you know, but I'm a fairly new father. And I know that I know that you're a father. You always talked about your daughters.
Yeah.
What has fatherhood, you know, brought to your life, and how did that affect you?
Well, like you said, you know, my late father-in-law always told me, and I grew up the same way, you know, without your faith and your family, you really have nothing, you
That's
know.
Right.
And, you know, when I had my first child, I always talk about, you know, love. It's a different kind of love. You're experiencing it now. You know, God's greatest gift is having a child, you know, and then having 3 daughters, and that's a game changer. It's a whole new deal. And you know, it was you know, trial by error. You know, you learn along the way, as you're going to find out about raising. Did you have a boy or a girl?
This is a girl, and this is what I had for you. I think you're gonna enjoy this one. I don't know if you're familiar with the term "girl dad," but you could definitely use that in your first meeting because you're a girl dad as well. So, what's the biggest lesson that you can give me as a new father?
You know, my wife taught it to me. You know,
okay.
You always baby that first one because they're more resilient, way tougher than you ever think. You know, and I would pad up the house, anything that had a corner on it. You know, when they started walking and those kind of things, falling down and bumping their head and all that, and then you find out after the first one that these kids are pretty tough, and then the second one, the third one are tougher. But the biggest lesson is that I can tell you or anybody that's going to listen to this podcast, especially a girl dad, you know, you have to make sure that they're going to walk out of your home, okay, at 18 years old, and they're going to go. And they're going to go to college, they're going to go do whatever, right?
Right.
You've got to make sure that they walk out of there and their self-esteem is off the charts.
That's right.
And they love themselves, you know, because things are going to happen. Peer pressure is going to happen, you know, and if they're going to go find love, however they can find it. But if they feel really good about themselves and they love themselves and they're okay within their own skin, they're going to be fine saying, hey, no, that's not for me.
Right.
You know, and they're not going to gravitate to whatever group it is just to be a part of something, you know.
Right.
And my wife early on, you know, we're all raised different. And I was doing some things as a new father that I didn't like, that my parents did to me when I was growing up. And she's like, you know, you're just repeating the same things your dad did.
Right.
You know, and you didn't like those things.
Right.
And I said, okay. And I appreciate her checking me on it. So I had to grow and I had to change, but just know this too, that they're watching every move you make.
Man, listen,
so that's huge. Okay. They're watching every single move you make, good and bad, you know, and your relationship with your wife, you know, they're watching that. and
Absolutely.
how we treat our significant others and the things that go on in the home. So, and don't think just because they're little babies that they ain't picking up on stuff. Because
You're right, man. You're right. And I can definitely relate with what you're saying. And I've been told, hey, you're acting like your father right here, but we're going to leave that for later. But okay, so all right, you're getting me prepared for 2 and 3 already. I guess we're going to have this conversation again once that
yeah,
happens. But
yeah,
let's move into your journey, right? And before we even touch on a little bit of football and how you got to where you are, Coach, I want to I want to give you a chance, an opportunity to uh, talk about your glory days, right? I understand you've played a little bit of football here and there, right? I remember you telling us a few stories here, and tell us, I'll give you a chance, right? I don't know if you remember the last time you did this, but go ahead, school you played for, position you played, and just a little bit about your
yeah,
playing days.
yeah,
I know
sure.
you got a lot of highlights and everything, but
I
Coach,
wouldn't
keep it
call
short if you like, so we can get into the nitty gritty.
I wouldn't call it glory days.
Coach,
I
you didn't have
had,
to tell them
like, you
that.
got Muamba moments. I had a couple moments, and you remember we even talked about in Indy why we sacrifice and do what we do. It's for these moments,
Right.
those 5 minutes after a great win
Yes.
that you get to share with each other. So
Yes.
when you say glory days, mine probably is glory day. One. No, but I grew up in a football family. If you remember, my dad was a high school football coach, so I've been
Right.
around it, my whole life growing up. Played at Wyoming. I had a great experience there. I had a couple years where, I got to start. I walked on there, earned a scholarship, all those kind of things. So it's always been about, earning my way and hard work and doing those kind of things. But probably the moment, my favorite moment
Yeah.
from my college career would be we were playing the University of Colorado. I grew up in Boulder.
Okay.
So the University of Colorado didn't recruit me. And rightfully so. I was probably 155 pounds and ran probably 5 flat coming out of high school, so, but I still had a chip on my shoulder,
Come
because
on now.
myself,
Come
like
on
you,
now.
like all of us, I thought, shit, I'd play for the Buffaloes, and they didn't recruit me. So we had a ton of guys up at University of Wyoming, up in Laramie, that were from Colorado, that Colorado didn't recruit. So when
Okay.
we went down there, we had a huge chip on our shoulder, and we end up winning that game. And granted, Colorado wasn't what they were at the time. I think Coach McCartney had just got the job way back in this 1982.
Okay.
So we're talking a long time ago. But
Okay.
anyway, during that game, I got my whole family there, my mom and dad, brothers and sisters, and you name it, they're at the game. And Darnell Clash was a corner of ours. He intercepts a pass, and he was playing left corner. He intercept pass, and he was our punt returner. So
Right.
every time he had the ball in his hand, he was a threat to score. So he starts bringing that thing back, and I'm not fast enough to be in front of him to block. So I'm just kind of trailing him the whole way. So he's about the 10-yard line going in. He's about to get tackled, and I'm right behind him, like, give me the ball, give me the ball, and he turns and he pitches it to me, right? And I still get goosebumps to this day, because I walked in, got a touch, scored a touchdown, on the field that I grew up as a kid, going to watch Colorado play in front of
Right.
mom and dad and all that
Right.
stuff. So you got the picture in the paper the next day. I'm holding the ball. It was
Nice.
unbelievable
I
moment.
vividly
So
remember
my
that
glory
story.
day, that was my glory day. But
You definitely told
had a
us
great experience.
You definitely told us that story a few times with that picture. I remember you talking about that picture with you holding the ball. So you played a little bit, and it's amazing because you know what it feels like to be on the field. And I know there's some coaches and who who didn't necessarily have an experience playing, but they love the game so much and they started coaching. Talk to us about the importance and the responsibility that comes with leadership, because you are a coach, you've been a head coach, you're a defensive coordinator, but you're a leader of men. Talk to me about the responsibility that comes with leadership.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I think it's you have to understand that is a huge responsibility, and because you're leading an organization, you're leading a bunch of young men and everybody in that building, and so I think it all comes down to you can talk the talk, but you got to walk the walk.
Yeah.
and whatever, your core values are, your virtues are, the trust, loyalty, respect thing, the thing that we said were our core values at Indy about holding up the horseshoe.
That's right.
If I just talked about those things and I didn't live that, day in and day out,
Right.
I think, the speed of the leader determines the rate of the pack. I love that.
On.
I love that quote, because, you have to bring juice. You have to bring energy every day. You have to bring passion. You have to set the expectations. You have to set the culture. And then you gotta live that, and you gotta stay true to yourself, first and foremost. I had so many guys when I first got the head job in Indy say, Coach, whatever happens, keep coaching. You're going to get pulled a lot of different directions, but stay with the football stuff, but stay true to who you are.
Right.
What you've done to this point has been good enough to get you into this seat, but don't let this title change you. Tony Dungy called it death by inches.
Yes.
He said, if you move away, from who you are, what your core values are, what your beliefs are, your philosophy is, from a fundamental technique, coaching style, relationship, you move away, an inch the first year, then an inch the second year, an inch the third year. He said, before long, you're a foot away from really who you are, and you can never go back. So it was always staying true to myself.
Yeah.
And staying true to who you are.
I love
And so I tried to do that, and I tried to, as a leader, you be consistent and try to be that same guy every single day. So as a player, like you were, those guys, good, bad, or indifferent, they would come in there every day and they knew what they were going to get.
Right.
And we were going to tell the truth. We were going to be upfront. We were going to be forthright. Sometimes that wasn't going to be good, but it was going to be honest.
Right.
And it was going to be forthright. More times than not, you hope it was good stuff, but you wanted to be honest, and you wanted to keep it real and keep it 100 with everybody. But I think staying true to who you are, and setting up your culture the way that you want that, then you gotta live it, and then you've got to teach that over and over and over every single day.
Right.
We
right.
preached, remember, we were team.
Team.
Team first, self second, serve others. That trust, loyalty, and respect. The process deal of never too high, never too low. Just try to stay steady. The 60 minutes, all you got, one play at a time. Don't judge. The biggest part of that was, remember, the don't judge was, good play, move on.
Yep.
Bad play, move on.
Move on.
Make a mistake.
And
make a mistake, move on.
And I love
it. Doesn't matter. Just don't look at the scoreboard. Just do the very best that you can. Prepare the very best that you can. So it's day after day after day of staying true to that, and then life is going to happen. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs.
Right.
Just keep moving forward.
Correct. And this is what I love about the game of football. But I love this about this specific podcast where I speak to different people from all walks of life. You talked about good play, move on, bad play, move on. Like, this happens in real life, right? These are lessons we learn in football, but can be directly, applied to our lives. And good things will happen in life and some bad things will happen in life. But the important thing is to move on. And so you touched on so many great things, specifically that deals with leadership. Here's a question that I have for you as well that I think that is pretty interesting, because I know that in order to reach a level of success, and no matter what industry, what field you find yourself in, whether it's sports, business or beyond, it's important to learn how to work with others. And so from that perspective, as a coach, right, how hard is it, and what's the important thing about kind of gathering your staff, gathering your team, bringing into your team together, because I know that it's important for you to reach that next level.
Yeah, because putting that whole thing together, you're gonna get a group of individuals from all different backgrounds, raised totally different ways.
Right.
Personalities are going to be different, but getting those people together and then getting everybody to buy into, your culture,
Right.
that's a challenge, and I think it comes down to, it's a respect thing, and it's not something that we can buy. You have to earn that by, you say what you're saying, here's going to be our culture and all that, but you got to live that every single day.
Right.
But it's a matter of respect. We treat you like a man. I'm gonna respect you. Here's what the expectations are. Here's the job description. We can agree to disagree, as an offense, as a defense, as a whole staff, but at the end of the day, it's going to be our defense, our offense, our team. It's not mine. It's not yours. It's ours.
Right.
Remember we used to talk about us?
Yep.
Unity over self.
That's right.
Because it isn't about me. It's about we. It's about the team. It's about the collective deal. So getting everybody to buy into that is huge. But to me, it comes down to respect and how we communicate and how we talk to each other.
Right.
Guys are going to make mistakes, and ego. Everybody's got an ego.
Right.
And you just have to try to, hey, we always talk about, hey, check that at the door. And I want guys to have personality, and I want them to let their light shine and that personality to shine and be yourself and all that stuff. But it's not about the ego part. You can be you, but it's okay. What can I do for the team? So bringing a group together, establishing your culture and reteaching that culture day after day after day, but then getting everybody to buy into that. And obviously, if you have success and it's working, it's a lot easier. No matter what you do, no matter if you're in business, you're in football, whatever it is, it's a team. It's a collective group, whether you got 500 employees, you've got, a 90-man roster right now in the National Football, it doesn't matter.
Correct.
It's the group that, that buys in, that comes together. They can put their egos aside. They work hard. They execute their job, their role to the best of their ability. Still heard. You still let them heard. Everybody's got a voice. And again, like I said, we can agree to disagree.
Right.
But then the most important thing is, like, when we walked out of those meeting rooms, offense and defense, and we decide, okay, this is the plan for this week. We shake hands. And we said, this is it. Then you're going to coach the linebackers. You got to go sell that.
Right.
And if you like walking out, like, we agree, okay. But then you go in your room and say, yeah, this is what coach wants to do. I'm with you guys. I feel you. I don't know why, but this is what he wants to do. How's that going to be perceived?
Listen, I'll tell you what, Coach. Fitzy always sold it to us. So we believe everything he said.
And he was the best.
Yep.
He was a loyal soldier.
Oh, yeah.
And don't think that, because everybody's got great ideas and been part of different schemes and been at different, like, if you're in business, you've been worked for, for this company, now you're moving to this company, and the culture might be a little bit different, and you got great ideas in your mind, but you got to blend it all together.
That's right.
And then we got to be all on the same page, and then go sell that, to the players. But I think that's huge.
Amazing. You just gave us like a team 101. And we talking about football, but I'm thinking about the leader that's in an office and that has to assemble a team in order to accomplish a task. And I'm thinking about a doctor that has a group of people around him that needs to follow them. And I'm thinking about the lawyer that has a group of people as well that's surrounding him. And all the things that you just touched on are extremely important, that not only just in football, but specifically in whatever setting they might find themselves in. There's one word that kept coming up every time you were talking. I don't even know if you remember it, but you kept mentioning culture. What's the biggest importance of culture on that road to success when it comes to a team setting?
Yeah, I think I don't want to sound cliche-ish, but I think culture eats strategy.
Come on.
Okay, if your culture is right and everybody's on the same page and everybody is bought into that, then I don't care. You can have the smartest people at the top, working for you, whatever. But if your culture is not right, you're not going to be successful. So that's why I say to each strategy, it's, we always said, this game is, it's about players, not plays. We got better, our culture's better, our players are better, we're going to beat you, because we're going to make it simple so that those guys can go execute their job. They can play fast. They can do whatever that job is in the whatever corporation they're working for. It doesn't matter.
Right.
They understand exactly what their role is and what their job is and what the expectations are. And then if the culture's right, and they share the same values and same beliefs that you as the leader, share and believe, then it's like, then you can do some flipping amazing things, man.
Coach,
do some things that maybe that no one thought you could do.
As a leader, right? And I have a team. I have great people around me. I'm thinking of somebody out there that's watching this and saying, man, okay, cool. I've surrounded myself with the right people, and we're all checking our egos at the door. It's about us, not me. I'm hearing Coach P talking about culture. How do I establish that culture? What's the one thing that you would tell them in order to that's important in order to establish that culture?
I think you have to say, okay, this is what it is. In order to what are the virtues? What are the values? Like trust, loyalty, and respect. Character, matters. So whatever those words are, whatever those terms are that you say, okay, this is going to be our culture. It's going to be based on, it's going to be based on trust. It's going to be based on loyalty. It's going to be based on respect, hard work. You're going to have to come in and earn your way every single day. Nothing will be given. So you set the tone and you lay it out there. Now, as the leader, like we talked before, you have to walk that walk. You can't just talk it. You have to live that.
Right.
And then to me, you have to keep reteaching that. And I don't think you can, have all the sayings and this and that and bounce around. And 1 week we're this, and then the next week we're that. You find out what you really believe to be, in your heart, what you believe that what a winning culture should look like. Mm-hmm. Because you should be able to walk into a football facility, walk into a corporation, a business, whatever. And if it's really good, you can taste it. Right. You can feel it.
You feel it.
You know what I mean? You can feel it, you can taste it, because you can, and you can walk into some and it tastes really bad. And you can be around a group and say, this ain't nothing like what I had over at this team. When I was in this locker room, when I was this team, that was way different. And now we come to this one, and it's built on, it's built on relationships. It's built on love. It's built on loyalty. It's about the brotherhood. It's about all of us being in this thing together, and we take care of each other, and we got each other's back, and then you just keep pounding that home, and you keep reteaching it in different ways, stories, you go back and share things from that other people have been through to try to bring home your culture and what your identity is going to be. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It's amazing. Great answer. And I can totally relate to it. I remember specifically prior to entering the NFL, I visited with multiple teams, and I could literally sense it as soon as I get into the building. And I remember coming to Indianapolis. The first contact that I had with a team representative was DT, and I felt it from him. And then going forward, after meeting you and the rest of the coaching staff, and then the team, the players and everything. So like you said, it really flows down, and it's extremely important. And you could tell that it was an established culture that was there to stay. I have another word for you, and you'll love this one. You haven't mentioned it. Yes, I'm actually surprised you haven't brought it up yet. Right. But I'll give you a chance to talk a little bit about it, because I know it's important to you. And you always mentioned it. Grit. Tell us about grit, because that's one of the words that I wasn't extremely familiar with prior to getting on the team in what, 14 it was. But you drilled it and drilled it and drilled it into all of our heads and how important it was. I remember doing some research afterwards about it. There we go. I'm not even surprised. I did some research. I've listened to some tech talks about it. I've read about it ever since, and I love it myself. But to the person that may not know exactly, give us a little insight on what grit is and how important it is on the road to greatness, on the road to success, no matter where you might be, right? And what role it's played in your life.
Sure. And, you know, when people started, I think Angela Duckworth, you probably watched her TED
Yes,
Talk.
sir.
You know, that was my first exposure,
Right.
you know, and then I shared with my daughters, you know, because they're in college, they're going through, you know, ups and downs and adversity and everything that's coming their way, you know. And then my daughter sent me a big, you know, quote, or not a quote, but the definition of what grit was, you know. And that Angela Duckworth TED Talk, you know, when they did the study on kids, it wasn't IQ, it wasn't intelligence, it wasn't this, it wasn't that.
Right.
It was the kids, the people that were most successful were the ones that had grit, which was perseverance, resolve, stick-to-itiveness. So that was the biggest part for me, stick-to-itiveness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're a young player, you're a young executive, you're whatever, and you're trying to climb the ladder and you're trying to grow, you know, in your profession, and then adversity strikes. Do you have that grit to fight through that? You know, do you have the grit to move on? You know, and there's going to be setbacks, you know, because remember we always said, you know, life is going to be tough. And the sooner you realize that it's going to be tough, it's going to start getting easier. But with that grit, you know, that's just being able to deal with adversity and deal with life and deal with hard times. And, you know, you're going to get beat. You know, you play corner in the National Football League, they're going to catch some balls on you and you're going to get beat. And you better have some grit. You better have some amnesia, number one, and be able to forget that and move on. But that whole grit thing, and it doesn't matter. I mean, it's huge, you know, in sports, and it's huge as an athlete, you know, as a competitor, because you're going, especially at this level, it's the best of the best that you're going against, you know. And like Mathis always said, there's no pity parties in life.
Right.
You know, you got to man up. You got to own your stuff. We'll make the corrections after a bad game, a bad loss, and then we'll move on. You know, but you're going to get hit in the mouth. You're going to get knocked down. But if you got grit, you know, you've got resolve, you've got perseverance, you've got toughness, you got the mindset to get yourself up,
right,
you know, and keep moving forward. Then you're going to get through this thing, you know, and you'll get through whatever comes your way. I believe that.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you brought up Rob, because he's another guy that I got to get on here soon. We're already in discussion about making that happen. But I'd be remiss. I don't want to take too much of your time. And before I let you go, though, I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on that moment in 2012. And this is before I even came on the team, but it's well documented. You've talked to us about it and you use it because it's such a, you know, major part of your life. But that moment in 2012, take us back there. Take us there. Talk to us about how everything happened, and specifically the beginning and ultimately the victory, and how you conquered, you know, cancer. It's a plague that's hit this world, and you know, nobody loves it, nobody likes it, nobody enjoys it. But talk to us about how you dealt with it and how it's affected you, your family, and your life as a whole.
Yeah, you know, nobody, because we're all invincible, right? and cancer doesn't discriminate. Unfortunately, it touches everybody at some point. May not personally touch yourself or anybody in your family, but we all know people, you know, that have been hit by cancer and dealt with cancer, you know, said goodbye to loved ones way too soon because of the disease. But I remember specifically back, you know, to 2012, and, you know, I started having during training camp, you know, you're tired, you have fatigue. That's just training camp. That was the job. I was tired all the time, you know, but I'm used to that. But bruises started showing up on my body. And then we played Jacksonville week 3. And our bye that year was week 4. And nobody wants to have a bye the fourth week of the season.
Right.
You want to be right dead in the middle. You played half the year. Hopefully you don't have a bunch of guys on injury. You need that time, that week, you know. And the rules were you got, you could practice, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the players got 4 days off, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I always gave the coaches the same time, so it was a four. So we were playing Jacksonville. Andrew takes us down the field. We take the lead. We're up, 4 or 5 points. And there's 56 seconds left to go in the game. And we kick off to them, touchback. And the very next play, Blaine Gabbert hit Cecil Shorts on a skinny post, and we were in cover 2, and he split our safeties, 80-yard touchdown.
Right.
And we lose the game. Go in the locker room. I said what I had to say, my remarks, and then I remember Rob Mathis. I said, call him up, Rob. So he brought everybody together, and that's when he said, no pity parties in life, man. This one is done. We'll come in tomorrow. We'll watch the tape. We'll make the corrections. We'll move on. That next day, I had some blood work done on Tuesday. Tuesday night, Doc calls me, says, I made your appointment. Go see an oncologist down at Simon Cancer Center. I'm like, what? You got to be kidding me. So I go down there Wednesday. I didn't even tell my wife, Tina, but then they finally said, you got to tell her. She's got to take you down there. You need to tell her. So she came, got me. Nobody knew where I was. Nobody knew where I was going because I didn't want anybody to know because I just thought, this ain't real.
Right.
I'm going to go down there. They're going to say, okay, you got this, and this. You're good. You're fine. And then when you go, and I sat in front of Dr. Larry Kripe, my oncologist, and he says, I'm 99% sure that you got APL. It's a form of leukemia. And, you're sitting there right there in that moment, and then you're like, why me? I just got my dream job.
Right.
Your head football coach in National Football League. We got a great team. We got, just a great opportunity, right? And you're saying, and then all of a sudden, what entered my mind was Rob.
There's no pity party.
No pity parties, in life. And then, my wife is sitting next to me. I got 3 daughters. I got 3 granddaughters. And I'm saying, okay, it's grit time. It's go time. I said, I signed up for that for life, for my wife, my kids, and my granddaughters. And so I just said, give me the game plan. What do I got to do? What's this going to entail? What's the game plan? Because I got to kick this thing's butt. We talked about, condition versus position.
Right.
And my condition was that, I took over the worst team in the National Football League. We were 32 out of 32, right? And the power rankings before that, for that season, they just come off 2-14. My condition was now I'm diagnosed with leukemia, but my position, that's how I thought I chose to think, which is way more important than your condition, was that we were going to win and we would win now. I was going to kick cancer's ass, and I was going to be around, for a long time for my wife and my kids, and I was going to walk 2 more daughters, down the aisle.
Yes.
Dance at their wedding.
Yeah.
And hoist that Lombardi. So that was my position. And so, again, we're all going to life's going to happen. It's coming. I used to tell you guys all the time and tell the players all the time before you got there, long after you left, life's coming, but just understand faith and family, and you got the right mindset and the right attitude, you can overcome anything, and I was very, very lucky. I was at the right place at the right time, and I had great doctors and caregivers and nurses and the medicine, and I had to go through the chemo and all that stuff. But it was the team. It was that city, that they didn't know me from anybody. And the way they embraced me and my family, and then the whole Chuck Strong thing, and then Andrew, BA took over and the team started winning. That first game I was out, we're down 21-3 to Green Bay, at halftime, and came back and won by 3.
Right.
And it's amazing, when a group decides to come together and play for something bigger than themselves,
Right.
It don't matter what anybody says. You can accomplish anything. You can do anything that you want to do. And they won 9. I missed 12 games. They went 9-3 in that stretch. We weren't supposed to win anything. you know.
Right.
And then I got in remission. I was able to come back the last game of the season, you know, home game. We beat the Texans. Weren't supposed to beat them. Made the playoffs. We got knocked out of the playoffs the first round, but it was a magical year, you know. And now, you know, we got the Chuck Strong Gala that, you know, unfortunately because of COVID and stuff like everything else, we had to cancel it this year. But this would have been our 8th annual. We've raised, you know, almost $8 million during that time, and every penny goes to cancer research. You know, they're at Simon Cancer Center, IU Health. So I'm forever connected to that city and that community, you know, just because of that. So I'm blessed to be where I'm at and be in remission for you know, over 6 years now, 7 years, and so I'm very lucky. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my family. I learned a lot about others. I learned about, you know, because right now we see there's way more good, you know, in this world than bad.
Right.
And sometimes just because the media and social media, all we hear is the bad.
It's easy to focus.
Going through that taught me that people are good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good. We just gotta dig deep and find it, bring it out of everybody, you know. So
that every time you share bits and pieces of that story, you know, it brings me chills. You know, it gives me chills, and including right now, it's just amazing the fact that you were able to overcome the way you did, and the people that surrounded you and how you did it, being able to come back, the energy that it gave to the team. I understand. It's just amazing. It's amazing. You mentioned, you know, Rob. I'm just thinking about the list of players. You mentioned it multiple times, and clearly he's had an impact on your life as well. What you've played with amazing players. I'm talking about legends. You know, I'm talking about Ray Lewis, obviously the Andrew Lucks, the T.Y.s, the Reggie Waynes and whatnot. And I'm going to be able to get to some of those guys as well on the podcast at some point. But is there, first of all, Ray Lewis specifically, I'm a linebacker. What's the best story you got for us? I know you got a million and amazing stories about what, you know, your time with Ray Lewis when you coached in Baltimore, but give us one amazing story that you may remember that Ray Lewis was involved in.
Got a lot of them, but we're playing Cincinnati on the road, and Marvin Lewis, who coached Ray, you know, at Baltimore, before he got the head job in Cincinnati, so he knows Ray better than Ray knows himself, and put the scheme together. I'm not the coordinator. I'm just the secondary coach. And so it's like third and 3. And Rex, Coach Ryan was the coordinator. This was back, I think this is my first year in 2008. And he called a pressure, and which is not surprising, you know. Rex, he loved pressure, you know. So he always talked about pressure bust pipes, right?
Yeah.
So he calls this pressure, and you know, again, Marvin's on the other sideline, so he knows as soon as we line up, and then he sees Ray stem over, because we're going to take him out of the middle of the field as a middle linebacker, put him on the right edge, and bring him off the right edge. So they dummy count us, whatever. He stems over, and then they got time. They change the play, and they hand it off to the running back, and they make the first down, you know, by a yard. And so we get 3 more plays. We get off the field. We get out of the series, right? And Ray comes off the field, and he comes over to me. He goes, "We don't need to do that." I'm like, "Ray, what are you talking about? We don't need." It was called Cincy One Train. We don't need Cincy. You don't take the best middle linebacker in football out of the middle of the defense. I said, "Ray, I didn't call the damn play. Okay," I said, "Rex is right down there. The D coordinator is right down there. You want to go tell him? Don't do that. You don't do that. They know Marvin's over on that side. He knows me better than anybody. He knows when I went over there. That's why they checked to that run. Don't do that." Okay. He's like, and I'm like, "Hey, Ray, again, Rex is right there. You want to go tell Rex not to pull you out of the middle? That's not smart. That's linebacker in football. You take him out of the middle of the field. I would blow that play up." I knew what he was going to do as soon as I went over there. Classic Ray.
Man,
Then it was done. But it was done. because those guys that separate those guys, you know, the way that they prepare and their passion for the game. Eddie Reed, him, Sugg, all those guys, Nada, and all those guys. I mean, it was scary. I mean, that culture and that defensive room there in Baltimore and the one here in Chicago. I mean, you have to be one tough son of a gun. You better be full of damn grit and skin like an armadillo and all that stuff, because the expectations, they were so high. This is how we do it. And they tell them, this ain't for everybody. You know, so you want to check out now, so we ain't got to, you know, go through it later on. But the expectations were what they were, but they were so fun to be around.
Coach, I promise you, I'm going to let you go. But you're talking and like things are, you know, stirring up in my mind. And this is a question that I've had and I always think about sometimes, right? And I always say, you know, I would never judge a great leader, the greatness of a leader, by what he possesses, owns, or what he has, right? Or what he does, period. No, I think that the measure of a leader, of a true leader, is really in how much he duplicates himself, how often he actually duplicates himself. And clearly you guys had a great coaching staff out there in Baltimore, specifically you being a part of it. Now, as a great leader, when you duplicate yourself, you know, the students, let's talk about, you know, the people who follow you, your students, and the people you're leading, your students, at some point they become, they raise as far as like their level of knowledge and just mastery of what they do or what of their craft. And I'm not just talking about football, but at some point the student starts to respectfully challenge the master, the leader, right? So when Ray Lewis comes to you like that, how do you deal with a situation? Because you've had multiple great, I mean, again, Rob comes right back to mind where his knowledge of the game was so in depth that he could come and kind of propose certain things to you and kind of direct a little bit. And so how do you put your ego aside? I know it comes back to putting your ego aside, but listening to the people that you know that you're leading.
Yeah, you listen to those guys because they know. You know, we sit we don't play the game. We understand it. You know, as coaches, we put the plays together. We design all the whatever, you know, and this stuff's amazing. This is gonna work. This can work. This can work. But you know, those guys that study and prepare and actually play the game, for us not to listen to that, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a defense or how we practice, how we meet, if we can do walkthrough better, nutrition, sleep, diet, time, whatever, routine, just the overall process, those guys know, you know. And so like with Ray or Ed or, you know, Eddie Jackson here in Chicago, Khalil, these guys study, they know. And so when they come up and now it kind of depends on who it is, because if it's somebody that, you know, don't put the time in and you don't know what he's talking about, you know, you're going to take it with a grain of salt.
You're going to do what I tell you to do.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I got you. Okay. Make a few more plays before you start trying to design everything, you know. But those guys, those special dudes, they know, you know. And for me, you know, as a position coach or a coordinator or a head coach or whatever, for me not to listen to those guys, and it wasn't like, okay, we're going to just, you know, everything you said we're going to do, but how do you see this? You know, how do you see us playing this run? How do you see us picking up this route? You know, because the way I saw it, or the way that we saw it as a defensive staff per se, it wasn't always the right way. And then those guys would say, no, what do you think about this? And I'd always go, and I learned this over time. You don't, because as a young coach, you think, oh, I got all the answers. I know everything, you know. And over time, you get older, you get wiser. And so you go in and say, before you do anything, how do you see this, Ed? How do you see us picking up this bunch route? You know, we've already talked it through a million ways in the D staff room, you know, and we've got kind of an idea. And then he goes up, oh, yeah, you just do beam, beam, beam. You're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We spent 2 hours talking about how to pick this thing up, and you just sent because you're out there playing in real time, you know, and how you see it as a player. So I think as a leader, if you don't listen to the people that you work with. That you know that because that whole teamwork, again, it's about us. You know, there is no me without we.
Right.
You know, Ubuntu. You remember that term, right?
Yep.
Ubuntu,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And that's that whole mindset. I am because we are.
Yep.
You got to listen to your people. You know, and that doesn't mean that. And they got to understand too that it always ain't going to get etched in stone. It is always going to fly. If it makes us better and it helps us win and it makes us a better team, a better organization, a better, you know, if it's best for your family, for your home, for whatever, if we make that decision and it makes us better, then do it. And you can't be afraid to do that. And again, that's just ego. That's just throwing outside the door. What gives us the best chance to win? What's the best thing for the team and what gives us the best chance to win? And I don't care whose idea it was, you know, that don't matter. So.
Coach, listen to this one. This is another question that just came up. Look, there's, Phil Jackson had Michael Jordan, right? Right now, the most common thing that people talk about right now is, Tom Brady has Bill Belichick. You obviously had some great players. Like I said, the list goes on, Ray Lewis and Terrell Suggs and all those guys. And obviously, as you're continuing your career, you're coaching some great players as well. Now, it's an interesting debate, who makes who, the player or the coach. I'd like to hear your opinion on that. And a lot of people that view, that watch from the outside looking in, they always feel like, oh man, yeah, coaching a Ray Lewis, coaching a Michael Jordan is extremely easy. You just let them do what they do. But there's challenges in that as well. What's the biggest challenge that you feel comes with coaching such a transcending player?
You better know your stuff.
Because you're going to get challenged as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And those guys, and, I was way better head coach when Andrew was healthy and under center. Right?
Hey, listen.
He got me probably a few more years than I deserve.
Listen, when you got 12, you always got a chance.
When he wasn't out there, I wasn't as good a coach, So it is what it is, but those guys, they still want to be coached. And so as a coach and as a leader, whatever, you have to know what you're talking about, and it's got to be real and it's got to be authentic. And as players, all you wanted, was a guy that could help you get better and help you reach your goals that you couldn't do on your own. Get another contract, get another year, get paid, get whatever, and then when you have success and when you win, there's going to be enough cheese to go around for everybody,
right?
But I think, as far as that goes, you gotta know what you're talking about. You got to keep it real. You love when those guys, you get challenged, and then because there's times, where I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
Right.
Because if you don't, and then you try to fabricate something, you start and making, they know if it's your bull corner, and you're bull crapping them. So the best thing is, look, I don't know, but I'm going to find out as soon as I can. I'll get right back to you. As a player, as a whatever, you can appreciate that better than somebody trying to fluff it up,
Absolutely.
Or why am I second team? I got benched when I was in college. Rocky Long was my coach. I was a senior and he benched me. I went storming up to his office, slammed the door. I said, "What in the hell are you doing?" He goes, "You stink." He goes, "You want to watch all the film? You know it. I know it. You stink right now. So get your crap together, and you can get your job back. Otherwise, you're out." He put a sophomore, walk on in front of me. And I couldn't, it was the truth. And I stormed out there and I had to start commencing to, because you can get complacent, when things start going good and you start feeling good about yourself and they're writing all this nice stuff about you. Then all of a sudden, bam, you let your guard down, you exhale, and you can't do that. You got to bring it every single day.
Amazing story, and I love it. I love the concept of team continues to come up and over and over and over again. So before I let you go, I'm going to ask you for 3 advice, right? in three different strategies. But I love how you talked about, having Andrew Luck and how he made you a better coach. I remember specifically one time we were playing a game and it was a really close one, and we went to the sideline, and I remember Laurent Landry looking to me, and he said, "Hey, whoa, man, hey, we got 12. We always got a chance." and Jerome, he repeated, "What up, whoa? Hey, we got 12 now. We got a chance." So it's amazing because, again, it comes back to the importance of having the right people around you. Now, three advice, right? I want three advice before you leave. My college roommate used to always bring up these random quotes. I think he made up some and maybe he read some, but he always used to say, "A wise guy told me this. A wise guy did this." So I don't want to age you. I'm not going to call you an older man, but I'm going to call you a wise man, right? You're extremely wise, and it's evident with every time you speak. But it's extremely hard being a coach because you have to master the art of self-control, right? You talked about not being too high when things go well, not being too low when things go bad. And sometimes I watch these coaches and they're on a sideline and sometimes you just show no emotions. And it's hard for me, specifically as a player, right? I want to be involved. I want to be a part of it. So standing on the sideline, leading from the sideline is difficult. So what's the advice that you might have is the first question that I have for you. First advice I'd like for you to give everyone that's listening. What's the advice you may have to somebody that's aspiring? Actually, just what's the advice for someone that wants to master self-control? Because it's important as a coach, but self-control, I think, is an essential thing when you're trying to reach success. You talk about dieting, self-control is necessary. You talk about training, self-control is necessary, and knowing when to say no, self-control is absolutely necessary. What's the secret to self-control?
Like you said, discipline. You want to be you. So there's some guys that are silent, very stoic, don't show personality, and there's other guys, they're Pete Carroll, whatever they're, I would, whatever I was, but you've got to be yourself.
Right.
But then the self-control you're talking about is you have to be able to not cross that line.
Mm-hmm.
You got to know exactly where that is, and whether you're dealing with a player and in the heat of the battle, whether you're talking to the media, after a game.
Yep.
You've got to go, and you got to, my deal used to be ready, fire, aim.
Right.
And I got in a lot of trouble with that mindset. Now, as you get older, it's ready, aim, fire. So if a guy will just step back and check himself real quick and say, okay, as a young person, you made mistakes. Maybe I made a lot of mistakes because I didn't think about what the consequences were. And if I do this, what are the consequences? So right now I do a lot of aiming, and I say, okay, if I go, I can't do that. If I do that, here's going to be the consequences. So that one's easy. You gotta take a deep breath, in the heat of that moment, whatever that moment is, and just say, okay, let me think through these things, and say, okay, if I do this right now, if I say this or I react a certain way, it ain't going, because you're going to be on SportsCenter for the rest of your life, with something, if it was a media, whatever. And I've got a legacy out there of some good and then some not so good, fake punt, that went awry that they keep showing. So as long as I'm living and breathing, I'm going to see that one. But just discipline, just you got to, just say, okay, if I do this, what are the consequences going to be? But you got to be yourself. But then in the heat of that moment, you got to be able to have that self-control and don't cross that line.
Amazing. Love it. Even though, Midge was running a lot of the stuff on special teams and he was crazy with his stuff, but we loved it anyway. So second advice, Coach. One of the things that we have in common, right? Listen, you talked about your moment when you were playing your playing days, and then you end up reaching your getting to your dream job, and similarly to me, I as my story, I was born in the Congo in Africa, raised in Canada, learned football quite late, played in Canadian football my whole life, played in the CFL, finally transitioned into the NFL. Like I don't sometimes I look back and like, how did I make it there? I wasn't really supposed to be there, but I made it, right? So I want you to give an advice to someone that is trying to accomplish a seemingly unsurmountable, goal. What is that one thing that you would give as an advice?
Grit.
Great.
So whatever, and we come from all different backgrounds, families. I don't know what the core values were in your home, that you grew up with, but that strong work ethic, and the confidence and belief in yourself that, regardless of what somebody else says, you don't listen to that, because you got faith and you got belief in yourself. We always say, faith is believing in what you can't see, and the reward for believing is you'll get to see it.
Right.
So you have to believe in yourself, and you have to have a goal, you have to have a dream. And then regardless of circumstances, no matter what the odds are, I'm gonna get this job done by any means necessary. Now, I'm not talking about, crossing the line or not playing within the framework of the rules or stabbing somebody in the back or stepping on somebody to get some, trash anybody. I'm talking about just a faith and a dream and a belief and believing in yourself. And then you got to work, and you have to earn it, and no matter what happens, and you just got to keep trying to put one foot in front of the other and just keep moving forward, and understand that, there's going to be setbacks, there's going to be adversity. You may think you're ready, for a certain job, and then you get passed over, and you get passed over again, and why ain't I on the field? Why didn't I get this? Why? Again, there's no pity parties.
Right.
That whole why me, spending time comparing and complaining and pointing the finger and being that guy. You don't want to be that guy.
Right.
And you work hard, and you do the very best that you can. You treat people the right way, and you just keep moving forward. Right. And then hopefully, based on circumstances, I got that coordinator's job. I was so lucky to get it in Baltimore and had all those great players. It wasn't me. It was their defense. I was just put in place to just don't screw it up. Let those guys play. We're gonna be fine. Like Woe said, we got 12. We got a chance. Yeah, hell yeah, we got a chance. Players we got here in Chicago. I mean, just don't screw it up. And so yeah, that's the thing there. It no matter what happens, Enoch, in your quest to achieve whatever you want to achieve, and as a father, as a man, as a husband, as a friend, no matter what it is, again, it's just, you work hard and you do the right thing, and you treat people right, again, if there's gonna be setbacks along the way, yeah, life's gonna happen. That's just it. It's coming. Adversity's coming. Remember, the storms are coming.
Yeah.
That's why you build your foundation on rock and not sand. And that's where it all starts. So.
And Coach, you're preaching right now, and it's amazing. I love listening to you. We're definitely gonna have to do this again. Last advice, however, you conquered, you beat, like we mentioned earlier, cancer, something that not everyone does. It required a certain level of consistency, right? And again, consistency is one of those things as well I always touch on, because it's so essential to success. Now, what would you give as an advice to somebody that's out there that is, in a battle, in the thick of things, in the storm, right?
Yeah.
Needs to develop that skill of consistency, right? They need to win this battle in order to literally stay alive, right? And you know all about it. What's that one advice you'd give?
Again, before I answer your question, I was very fortunate that because of research, because of doctors and researchers and people funding, cancer research. 20, 30, 40 years ago, they came up, with the chemo and I called it the cocktail they gave me. This idarubicin was the chemo, and then this other drug called Atra. They put the two together. They kind of stumbled upon it. So the form that I had, APL, went, when they found that out, it was like 50% made it, and then once they found this new drug and they put the two together, it went to the low 90s. So I was very lucky that what I had was very curable. That's not the case for so many,
Right.
and they don't catch it in time and all these things. But I think the consistency is number one, your mindset and your attitude. You got to go in no matter what they say. I'm winning. I'm gonna win this battle. Because you can't just fold your tent, throw in the damn towel and say, okay, it wasn't meant to be.
That's good.
It's a test. And the greater the test, the greater the testimony.
Yeah.
And so it's your attitude, it's your mindset. It's a never ever give up. Doesn't matter what. There's going to be some days that you're feeling really good, and then some days like you're just, man, I don't even know if I can get through this day. But it's and then listening to your doctors and whatever the protocol is and whatever they tell you to do, you do it. And if you got to change your diet, you change your diet. And then just because you're out of the woods, you may get out of, get into remission, then things are going really good. And you don't stay consistent what you're doing, then it might come right back like that on you.
Right.
So it's listening to those guys, but and doing what the doctors tell you to do, and taking care of yourself and being consistent with that. But to me, it's here. It's your attitude, and it's your mindset, and regardless of what they tell me, I'm gonna win this battle.
Yes.
And then your faith is huge, and that's huge. And just you trust in him, and you ask, okay, why are you giving me this? Some people look at it, is this a sign or is it a test?
Yeah.
If you look at it like a sign, then it's like, okay, what meant to be?
Mm-hmm.
I was only supposed to be on this planet X amount of years.
Right.
I wasn't supposed to get that job.
Right.
If you're not doing what you're doing, if you hit some obstacle at some point and you didn't persevere and you didn't keep going forward, we may not be having this conversation on your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But you kept going, and you had a faith and you had a belief that you could do it, so I think the people that say, okay, this is a sign wasn't supposed to happen, they start feeling sorry for themselves, they just give up, and then that's it. That's the case. But the ones that say, okay, this is a test, all right, you're going to bench me, you're going to put me on the bench, you didn't give me this job at this time, you passed me over again, okay, I'll show you. You don't go into the the comparing and complaining and all that. You say, okay, I got to do more. What do I got to do? I got to do more. I got to work harder. I got to do, and then you go to whoever and say, what do I got to do? Tell me exactly what I got to do, and I'll do it. What do I got to do to beat this disease? What is it? And then, like you said, you got to be consistent and do exactly what they tell you to do. But it's the mindset.
Coach, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's extremely busy over there preparing for the season and everything, and I know how wild it gets once things get going. So thank you for allowing us to just have this sit down. And before we even go out, you gave us a book, all of us, your book that's entitled Sideline. So I want to encourage anybody else that would love to read more, to hear more from Coach P. It's such a great read. I remember reading, and now I know you got another book coming. I know you're gonna write one on grit. So aside from that one, do you have?
All my buddies in college are like, when you wrote a book? What? It's like, I said that was the last guy I ever thought.
I love it. It's the evolution of life.
I had a lot of help, believe me.
Do you have any other project, Coach, that outside of football that you might be working on that you want to share to anybody at all?
I'm just working on trying to make sure that we can play the best defense in the National Football League and go try to hoist that trophy, you know.
Love it. Love it.
That's it right now. And then
We'll be watching. We'll be supporting. Thank you again for your time. This was another episode of the Muamba Moments with Coach Chuck Pagano. Thank you, Coach.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
All right.
God bless. Take care, bud.
This is the Muamba Moments.